Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trucked Before. This time, Destiny. Yeah, it's Destiny. DS9, It's All Been Trucked Before. It's Destiny that you're here and help forge our destiny, the future of It's All Been Trucked Before, and the entire IABD network by becoming a Patreon member. Patreon.com/IABD. Get everything. Get the early stuff. Get the video stuff from the mothership. It's All Been Done radio hour, as well as us, plus special episodes. Don't cost much. Pennies a day. If we still we may not have pennies anymore, but you can still spend that much money, become a Patreon member. It's easy. Patreon.com/IBD. Not as easy as this. Destiny on It's All Been Trucked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your skeleton crew is here on the station.
This is Steven.
Jimmy-Jerome. No sign of Keith. Don't know where he is. I thought he was going to be caught up with us. And because it's not Voyager week, then Shane's still in the Delta Quadrant. He doesn't commute back and forth.
I hope Keith's on Risa, and he just got...
I hope so, too. Yeah. And he comes back nice and relaxed, rejuvenated. Mm-hmm. He's got one of those idols that Riker likes. Yeah,
that he met a
he's been displaying in his room.
Maybe he's got a new Vosh in his life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Or cute. We're not judgmental. Either way.
There you go.
Or
That's
both.
Right.
Or both. Whatever. Anyway, we're talking about Destiny. What are your first impressions?
I like this episode. I think there's enough going on that it's interesting. You know, you've got the wormhole part of it. You've got the Cardassians and the Miles O'Brien and that interaction, which I found very entertaining. Which would be our B plot. I think you've got more overarching things going on here. I don't know how much I like the prophecy stuff overall going into it even, but I think the conversation about it here is interesting, and it kind of dovetails, and it's kind of, well, we'll get into whether it's nicely wrapped up or not. But, Tor.com gave it a 5. I was surprised the reception of this episode was more lukewarm than, and I'm not saying it's a grand slam home run, but I thought it was I liked it more than I thought going in, and it kept my attention, or it kept my interest, and I didn't really know what was going to happen next. So yeah, I liked it.
I liked it a lot. I like when Deep Space Nine gets into the religious stuff. I think it's been way too long since we've dealt with Sisko being the emissary. Mm-hmm. And here we're midway through season 3, and we've never really dealt with how Kira feels about Sisko being the emissary. Yeah. So I was very pleased to get that.
Yeah.
The prophecy, I could take or leave, but that's because I'm not religious, and I always think that kind of stuff's a bunch of hokum.
That's where I come from, yeah.
But the angle is, in this world, the gods are actually aliens that live in the wormhole. We know they're real. So that does throw things into question. And this prophecy actually does come to pass, even if they've misinterpreted it in such a way that you're like, okay. Sisko's role as the emissary will be an ongoing concern. It's not ever going to be one of the main plots of a season. But yeah, I like when they come back to it. I think it's interesting. I think it colors his character, and I do think it's instrumental in his overall personal journey over the 7 seasons.
I think the way you said that it comes back to it, because except for whenever I'm reminded of it, excuse me, I forget that's even a thing going on. But yes. I think it's definitely an interesting thing, and I read that was something the writers wanted to look into here, and they ended up going this direction with it, at least for this episode. But what is it like to be and I think it's dealt with differently here. What's it like to be be looked at as the emissary, be looked at as this person who's fulfilling this prophecy in some way. And I just watched Dune Part 2, so I've been doing a bunch of Dune reading, which that one is very
nice.
Prophecy.
I love Dune. I can't wait to watch the new show on HBO.
Yeah, religious leader and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And, Herbert's thing was, that's not necessarily a good thing. And I think that's where, and we see Sisko kind of wrestling with it. And I think that, that will continue. And so, yeah, and I thought you brought up a good point because Kira's whole thing with it. And I'm like, do I think less about Kira because she's so weird about this prophecy? The other thing the way they're like, well, when the Vedic comes in, is like, well, this is the thing. And then she's like, well, yeah, that's. And I don't know if this still happens as much. Parks and Rec did the whole thing about the group that was always in the park. The end of the world's coming.
Yes, I watched that recently. That episode, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like in the late 80s and in this period, there were a lot of people that were constantly like, well, everything that's happened in the Middle East has been prophesized. These are the end of days. It's the revelations, da, 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 that kind of thing. And so I was like, what? And it always got into kind of a, well, yeah, it's you can read things any way you want to. And I thought the way Sisko ends up handling it, and I'm jumping ahead there, but I like the way he handled it. It's like, well, it turns out this, yeah, your prophecy is right, but it was this thing that's not even a religious thing. It's a more of a natural, I guess maybe it is if it's a religious thing.
Something that really stood out to me about how Sisko deals with it, and I know like I've got a ton of notes before this, but Dax, if we did inspiring characters, I'd pick her this episode because what she says about would you be making a different decision if you believed it, or like, and I think that is really, really good, solid advice, because if the prophecies are real, then Sisko should do what he would do anyway, right? Yep. Not be worrying about he's making a prophecy come true or not. That's such a good way. Whenever you're second guessing yourself too much and you're trying to think the ramifications, you need to think about ramifications to a certain extent. But if you're just trying to escape a prophecy, I feel like you could talk yourself in knots and just frustrate the heck out of you. Just do what you think is best. And great advice, whether you believe in them or not, doesn't matter, right? Like, you can believe him, you can not believe in him. That should not sway your decision. So Dax, and I love that he's starting to get not too egotistical. I think that's the wrong way to put it. But it's quite a swelled head. But he is starting to get too in his head about it, and she punctures that, knocks him right back down to the ground in a good way.
It was
and
great.
Just the way she says it, too. Very no nonsense. Like, yeah, what are you doing with this?
And then her smile on the way out, like, essentially like, good answer. My work is done here. It was perfect.
Yeah. So I'll get back to the beginning here, but that was my thinking on this. So the Cardassians are going to build a communications relay to the Gamma Quadrant, because I guess we've tried that apparently, because it hasn't been a story point, but Sisko's like, yeah, we've tried all these things and they haven't worked. But these Cardassian scientists are like, yep, we are really, really focused on science, and a 1% failure rate's too high. We're gonna, we got all this stuff. There's a really fun scene with Quark bringing the Kanar, which apparently has gone bad, to their quarters. I really liked all that. And I really like Dax purposely tripping him up with the war is good for business, peace is good for business. She did not confuse the number of the rule of acquisition. She just wanted to expose his hypocrisy.
I thought that was super predictable, but also very funny. I mean, you see it coming. It's like, he's going to correct her and it's going to be the very next one, but it doesn't matter. It's still funny. It's a good setup. And I thought that was great. And I love later we get the callback on that. I mean, I do wonder why. Well, I guess Dax probably just likes her Kanar or whatever. Because I'm like, why is she dipping into that? But the fact she's like,
she appreciates.
Yeah, the fact she's like, this has gone bad. And then we get the callback later that Morn gets sick from it.
Yes.
And it's just a little throwaway, but it's beautiful.
I mean, I kind of wish we'd seen Morn just holding his stomach in the background of some scene. I wish we'd seen him holding his stomach and walking with Bashir to the infirmary. But I loved that throwaway. I mean, anything time you have something with Morn going on, it's always chef's kiss. The bullfights, though, man, they've done so much to make me not hate Quark, even though he does so underhanded, sneaky things. But knowing that he is actually trying to stage bullfights, it's hard to still like him and find him charming in that scene. It's a step too far. It's too bad guy-ish, in my opinion. Even though bulls are completely ugly, as you remember, because we've seen them, they're disgusting. But
I guess they're trying to keep it real with him. But I see I understand what you're saying too.
It's like, I mean, it's not the same level, but if it's like, he cheats a little, he skirts the law a little, then he traffics children, but it's all cool. It's like, one of those things isn't like the other. And I know bullfighting is not as bad, but I'm immediately, of course, thinking dogfighting or cockfighting, which are awful, horrible things.
That's a really good.
Both is dogs, but I'm still saying it's still really bad.
That's a good analogy to bring it home.
Like, I don't like lying and cheating and skirting the law, but he does. The thing is, Quark, at the end of the day, Quark does the right thing, over profit. We've seen him do it. We've seen him have a heart and we've seen him care. And so you can dismiss the minor things as that's just him doing a persona because he has to for his culture. But when you do something actually harmful, like really harmful, you cheat people have a few bars of latinum. Sucks, but it's not the same as animal cruelty.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
That's a really good point.
Agreed.
They mentioned Odo's staff, and I'm sure we've seen he has people that work for him, but I struggle to think of a time when like a couple security guards showed up or whatever.
We every once in a while see a security guard next to him. Like there was a crowd control thing a couple seasons ago, and then he directed a Bijoran officer around, and we saw him like greet the whoever got off the shuttle. I think it was a week or two, episode or two ago. Somebody got off the shuttle, and they was being suspicious of them, but there was a security guard with them, then a Starfleet security guard.
I guess around the brig. I guess I feel like we never see them. I guess it's just like red shirts. If you want to, we don't see them outside of when they're actually.
Oh, it was Voyager's pilot. Sorry, I just made up a scene. Because I was like, got off the shuttle and somebody was suspicious. That was Voyager's pilot. It was only in the novel. It wasn't on screen. So I made up a scene in my head. And in my head, Odo had a Starfleet security guard with him.
Okay. But still, I see what you're... But I think, like I said, I'm sure there have been scenes where his co-workers have been there, but...
They usually don't speak. They're extras.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They talk about the Bajoran prophecy, and that's 3,000 years old, which is... like twice as old as the Bible. So, look, the Cardassian scientists show up, and they are especially friendly to Kira, going out of their way to say, like, thank you, because you could have blocked us. And she's like, I don't have that power. And I don't know if she does or not, but the differentialness was wonderful.
I wrote down... It
made me like them immediately.
Yeah. I wrote down Awkward Pleasantries, which I think is a good title for an album or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was goofy, awkward in a natural way, as natural as it can be.
Did you take it as sincere, or did you think they were trying to get one over on her? Because I could easily see how somebody might think it's the Cardassians trying to get one over on her, or being like Dukat or Garrick sometimes can be real smooth-tongued, underhanded. But these two scientists came across as sincere to me.
Yeah, I believe them. Yeah, I thought they were sincere as well.
As Sisko says, these are the friendliest Vipers. Let's talk about the actresses of the main two, because the third one doesn't have a picture on IMDb. Jessica Hendra, who shows up later as Dejar, she's barely in the episode. I feel like they just needed a third Viper. She's only got 5 acting credits, this being the first one, so we won't really mess with her. But the other two are named. The other two are people you would recognize.
Yeah, Dejar, her biggest thing, and this is unfortunate because this sounds terrible, she's married to Kurt Fuller, who plays...
Oh, Kurt Fuller.
Yeah, he's been in everything. I think of him from Wayne's World as Rob Lowe's assistant in Wayne's World, but he's been in a million things. He's always delightful.
Like Midnight in Paris, Ghostbusters 2, The Running Man. He's over 200 credits.
Yeah, he's great.
New episodes of Night Court recently.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Psych, he plays that reoccurring role as the mortician. Or not mortician, morgue worker. I love Kurt Fuller. I didn't realize that was his wife. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other two, the main like boss of them, Laura, was played by Tracy Scoggins, best known for Babylon 5, which was DS9's biggest competitor. Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, where she played Cat Grant in the first season. That's where I know her best from, because I haven't seen Babylon 5. And Crusade, a television series from 1999 that she was in. Yeah, she's got 86 credits. She guest starred doesn't have a lot of credits in the last 10 years. I mean, she did like a guest star spot like Castle and NCIS, and then just kind of dropped off. Although she did have a credit last year from a Babylon 5 thing.
Yeah.
But
she did a lot back in the day. And she's a character actress for sure. Or, I mean, she did a lot of work. One interesting thing I found on her Wikipedia page was she almost made the 1980 U.S. Olympic diving team. Which
really?
I actually met somebody from the men's diving team. Obviously, they didn't get to go because we boycotted Moscow. But so that's not even Kevin Bacon degrees of separation. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. She was a gymnast and a diver. her dad was like an attorney. Her mom was, she was a tennis champion, but she also was, I think she was also an attorney or went to law school as well. So, but
I
yeah, Tracy
misspoke. She's
Saga,
not the
that
lead
name is very
Cardassian. She's the
familiar.
one that flirted with O'Brien.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I misspoke. I
yeah,
misspoke. Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The lead Cardassian was Ulani,
Lonnie,
played by
right.
Wendy Roby, best
Mhm.
known, in my opinion, for Twin Peaks.
Yep,
The
yep,
Nadine with the eye patch.
yep.
Love her
I
in
was
that.
like, when I looked her up and I saw the picture, I'm like, yes, and yeah,
So, first, I was like, she's so familiar. And then I saw Twin Peaks, and without even seeing a
yep,
picture of her in Twin Peaks, I was like, Twin Peaks, oh, yes, eye patch,
yep.
eye patch. Yeah, but
I knew
also
I
best known.
recognized both of them, even with all the makeup.
Yeah,
But as soon as I
yes.
looked up, I'm like, okay, yep.
Third Viper shows up, and Kira loses her crap. I mean, when they said there's only two Vipers, did you have a feeling that a third one was going to show up?
I should have, but I think I just blocked out I my prophecy schmophecy thing. I blocked it out, but I found it amusing when she did show up. Like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I guess the whole episode is like, oh, this. Yeah, it is sliding expectations, and oh, this is what it means. Oh no, this is what it means. Yeah, which back to our
Well,
metaphor
I
talk.
think a big setback for the prophecy happens about this time in the episode where they do their research on Mr. Vedic Yarka and find out he was stripped of his title by the Vedic Assembly and is
Yeah,
discredited and defrocked. Played
and
by
then
Eric Avari,
yes, yeah,
very familiar actor.
yep.
Best known for Mr. Deeds, The Mummy, Stargate, and The Chosen, the Stargate movie.
I think
181 credits.
100. I was
Ton of
gonna say,
credits.
I know he's been in everything. He's born in Darjeeling in India for you West
Really?
Anderson folks, and or T folks, I guess. I think that's a T. Also, Seinfeld. He was the cabbie in the episode The Pilot, and but I could not tell you which cabbie he was in that episode, but he is cabbie in the pilot episode of Seinfeld. So I was going to check that out, but I didn't.
Well, we this was actually a second Star Trek appearance because he was in Unification
Yes.
Part 1.
Yep. I did read, I think he's played like 33 different ethnicities in on
Really?
film. Yeah. And I think it's his grandfather is one of the pioneers of Indian cinema. So, but
Do
he's
you
always
count his
a
do you count his Romulan character as a different ethnicity?
I think so. Yeah. I just think whenever I see him, I feel like I like this guy, even though this
Oh,
guy,
he was a Klingon. Sorry, not a Romulan. He was a
okay.
Klingon in that episode.
In this
Yeah.
episode, I'm like, I don't know if I like this guy, but generally seeing that guy and seeing that actor, I'm like, this guy, whatever he's up to, I like him.
Does have a third Star Trek credit. He's going to show up totally different character in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay.
But yeah, I really like him too.
So they say that he got defrocked and all that, but I feel like at the end that's ignored, right? They don't really go any deeper, right?
I don't think it's ignored. It's just what I
Doesn't
found
matter.
strange was that Kira still called him Vedic. Like I would
Yeah.
think she respects the rules of the tradition. We find that out, and then the very next scene, she's talking to
Yeah.
him and calling him Vedic.
Yeah. Maybe
But
she doesn't want to let on she knows, but
well, then is it him that asks her, "Without your faith, what do you have left?" It's
mhm.
like, oh, I would say like a full life personally, but okay. I feel like that's an argument that religious people make, similar to my mom's reaction when I told her I didn't believe anymore. Like I was raised in the Catholic Church, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, what makes you be good then if you're not worried about like heaven or hell?" And I'm like, "Because I want to be a decent person and
Yeah, that's
treat people
not
the
the
way I want to
way
be treated, because that's how we have the social contract."
not the way it
Like
should work. Yeah.
it's similar. Like, what do you have without your faith? My personality, my friends, my life, my like everything.
If you're only
Everything
good because you
else.
think you're gonna get smoked or smitten or whatever, then that's not a good plan.
Maturation thing. Like children behave because they're
Yep.
worried about consequences. By the
Yep.
time you're an adult, you should behave just because that's how we
Yep.
treat each other.
Yep.
Although clearly half this country doesn't agree. So
Yep. Yep.
whatever. Odo calls Sisko out on him not being comfortable being the emissary. I feel like he hasn't been called out on that since the beginning of season 1, so it's nice to
Hmm.
have that
Hmm.
moment. It's really odd that all of our scientist women don't like Cardassian cuisine. Like, I get you
I
might prefer exotic cuisine, but you don't like Cardassian cuisine, like any of it. There
I
are
thought that was hilarious.
different
I wrote
cuisines.
that down too. And I was trying to think like, is there something I don't like? And I wrote down American cuisine, but even that, like I don't like fruit, most fruit, but although there's a lot of fruit I do like. Hot dogs, I don't like hot dogs, so I feel like I'm definitely yeah, see, un-American, see? So that
I
yeah.
would say American cuisine, and I know there's some overlap with other cultures, but I would say hot dogs, hamburgers, steaks, and pizza is American cuisine, and ribs. Like I feel barbecue and
Yeah.
pizza as
I
we know it, because other countries don't have pizza quite the same,
I
or
will
they
eat
are
ribs.
starting to.
That's not something I seek out. But the steak is something I'll eat if I'm at a steakhouse. That's not something I seek out,
I
but I
love
enjoy
steak and
it.
ribs.
Yeah,
Love
good
steak and
steak is
ribs and
good.
hamburger.
Hamburger and pizza is always good. That's for sure. And then,
Well, it's gotta be
but
a cheeseburger, but yeah.
yeah, but hot dogs, yeah, I just never. They would make me sick as a kid, and I think now. Although I do love an Italian sausage, so.
Mm,
But again, not American. But
true. Well, is what
well,
we call an Italian sausage Italian, or is it
yeah,
American? Or
it's Chicagoan. It might not be American, but it's
there's a
Chicago.
lot of what we eat that's Italian or Chinese
Oh
or
yeah,
Mexican in this
yeah,
country are American versions of those cuisines.
yeah. I had a friend who she taught English in Japan because
Mhm.
I don't know if she knew Japanese. I'm sure she still does, but she gave me a hard time for going to a Japanese steakhouse. She's like, "Well, it's not authentic Japanese." I'm like, "Taco Bell's not
Delicious.
authentic Mexican," but you know what? I'm still going there. But I understand what they're saying, but also I know what I like, and if it's even Americanized, I understand that, but I also like it. So yeah,
Why deny you good food?
yeah, yeah.
O'Brien essentially gets relegated to Galora's assistant, which I found funny, and I liked the whole exchange about and
Mhm.
the reversal of I'm just not used to men being good at science and engineering.
Hilarious. It was great. I love that. And at first I kind of bristled at like I don't know if I like this whole dynamic they're going or the dynamic of they're going to be bickering, but then the way they flipped it got real interesting. Like I read a synopsis of it, which and maybe I'm just the one, and this may be correct, and I'm the slow one. They're like, well, and right away, you know, they're O'Brien doesn't understand that she's attracted to him. I'm like, I don't think she is. Is she? She's not right away, right?
I don't think so. I think it's
Right.
after, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's after interaction that she and
But
him treating her the way he does expresses his interest, and then she gives him a thought.
yeah.
But he doesn't know he's expressing interest. It's culture clash.
Well, and that part I think is, and I guess we'll hit all these notes right now. At first, I thought they needed to recognize O'Brien's brilliance, and obviously, how would they know how good he is? But I thought this was another episode that was like, this guy does a lot of stuff, and I think we probably had this conversation before, but and everyone knows who listens to this podcast knows where I land. But Scotty versus O'Brien, and I think O'Brien, to an extent, I think he works with less material than Scotty does. I think. Like Scotty
Yeah,
has the
Scotty's on the flagship.
yes,
O'Brien's on a beat up
yeah.
station.
Scotty gets in more impossible situations where he's threatened with being fired and you got to figure this out. But O'Brien is on he's using B and C and D parts to put it together. I'm obviously gonna go with Scotty, everyone knows that, but I do appreciate I feel like Scotty's almost and again, I've always said, when he's running the ship or he's taking the captain's chair, I love him there. But he, for lack of a better term, he's the elitist. Like I'm a very smart person who figures this stuff out. Not that O'Brien's stupid, but I feel like O'Brien's more of the meat and potatoes, like I'm lunch pail. I'm breaking these down into not perfect analogies, but that said, I still side with Scotty.
Did you get the
But
Scotty reference in this episode?
did I miss it? Maybe
They talk about O'Brien's repair estimates, and I think it's Dax that, and maybe it's somebody else, but I thought it was Dax
oh
that
yeah,
says that
yes.
those engineers always making longer estimates than they need. That's so Scotty. I feel like any engineer that does it in the 24th century is doing it as a tribute to Scotty.
It's the Wrath of Khan, hours instead of days. Now we got minutes instead of
Yes.
hours. When not Alani, Galora finally reveals like, "Hey, I'm Indy" or whatever. She's like, "Well, because
By
the bickering will
saying,
never."
I assure you I'm quite fertile,
Yeah, well,
which I'm like, I don't think you need to be fertile for an attraction to be like
I
reproduction is not all of it by any means.
well, and her thing of like us fighting whatever. At first, it's like, oh, it's weird that the Cardassians think this, but then it's like, no, this is every rom-com for how many
Yeah.
years? It's like, well, that's you have this arguing banter, and then finally the woman realizes that she needs the man, and that dynamic, I feel like, I know we're not done with sexism, but I think that's been changing. But wrote a play essentially about where he kind of split it in two, where Act One is the rom-com, and then Act Two is like, this is how this would happen in the real world, which is somebody doing all this stuff. You'd be like, this guy needs to be arrested. But for a long
So
time,
is
it's
this
like,
like that show Kevin Can Go F Himself
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
AMC?
Well, yeah. Speaking of which, a friend of mine, she's like, and it's on Netflix now, and I watched it on AMC. I saw the first 3 or 4 episodes, but yes, speaking of perfect analogies, that's a great one. But
O'Brien turns her down by saying he's happily married. And I'm like, really, Brian? Happily? Are you sure? Are you sure you're happily married?
yep, and to that end, I wrote Bad Move, Miles. Also, yeah, for sure. I mean, who watching the show is like, he should go for this on
You
some
know what?
level.
I am telling you, Star Trek continues through the end of O'Brien's character to write Miles and Keiko as if they're happily married, and they
Yeah,
just don't prove it. They just
no,
never prove it.
no.
I did,
Well,
honestly, I took it on faith the first time through that they were in a loving marriage. And now that somebody's pointed it out to me, I can't unsee that they do
no.
not seem like they are happy
Mm-mm.
at all.
To that point, when she's putting the moves on him, the moves on him, the first thing he says is, "I have a child. Oh, and I'm married." He doesn't mention
Mm.
Keiko first. He mentions that he already has a child. Doesn't mention that he's married first. That's not the first thing he says.
So our
So
alternate episodes, Keiko's been away for months again, and he ends up having an affair, and then he's happier for it, and
that's
realizes he doesn't stay with Galora, but he realizes that he is missing something in his marriage.
that's really good. I signed on to this one early on, but just because they were so obsessed with how many Cardassians were coming. Mine is 7 Cardassians for 7 Bajorans. It get not a it's seven. What is it? 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Is that the name of that musical, right? Isn't that the old one? Yeah.
Yeah,
Not a
for
great
Seven
musical,
Brothers.
not a great concept,
I
but
haven't seen it.
that's where that was my alternate episode.
My alternate episode I wrote down was just more religion, more religious than it was, but I don't know how. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote it down.
uh, yeah,
So we finally get to the Defiant, which I'm like, it's been a while since we've seen the Defiant,
I
but
had the
I'm
same
ready for
reaction.
more Defiant. There's the rogue comment, which Kira utters on the bridge, Sword of Stars, which is kind of unlike her, but also like, because yeah, she'll speak up when she firmly believes something, but just the way she uttered it felt a little bit out of character.
Yeah,
I guess it is rounding out her character though, and proving just how much she does buy into it,
yeah,
which led to a great scene of the two of them, Sisko and Kira, in the quarters, where man, Avery Brooks is acting the heck out of it.
uh-huh.
And she admits she believes in him. And it's I like that they both can still work together and set her belief in him being the emissary aside. I like that they can
Yeah,
respect each other for other reasons. But
yeah,
oof, that was a good scene.
yeah,
Good scene, the two of them.
yeah.
The comet's heading right for the wormhole because they screwed it and redirected it. Scary.
Well, and that reminds, yeah, because and then first O'Brien's like, I screwed up, and I appreciate him being like stepping up and being like, you know what, I screwed this up somehow, even though he didn't, but he did, but he didn't, and then Deja, we come into her sabotage or whatever, but again,
Obsidian
O'Brien
Order
stepping up and being
rearing
like,
their head right again.
yeah, like, you know what, I didn't account for this and this and this or whatever, so he's a good
Not
man.
not the first time when Deja is exposed as the City Order, they have to send her to a quarters because there's no brig in the Defiant. It is a
Yeah.
small, compact vessel, and this won't
Hmm.
be the first or last time where it's like Defiant doesn't have extra space. Like even
Uh-huh.
Sisko's sharing quarters with somebody, he doesn't have an office on the Defiant. Like it's utilitarian.
I like that
It's not the
idea
starships
too.
we're used to.
Yeah, because with TNG and TOS, I feel like we're like, there's always plenty of room. Although when
Yeah, even
Jar
Voyager.
shows up, Sisko's like, prepare quarters for her. I'm like, But my thought then was like, God, they must have endless room. But one more room is one thing. But yeah, but
Well,
yeah,
I think then you bump an ensign off duty, right, and give her
or
the ensign's
someone
quarters.
on Odo's staff can.
Right. Yeah. Sisko reads about the emissary, which I'm like, really, dude? You waited over
Yeah, I
2 years to get into
yeah.
reading the
Well,
Three Vipers.
on that note, would you want to be a religious icon? I know how you feel about religion and how I feel about it, but yeah,
I mean, I guess the upside is I wouldn't have to hold a job, but then the
yeah.
downside is every time I go to the grocery store, I get mobbed. So, and you know what? I bet my radio hour shows would sell out. I would have such a fan
That's
base.
true. I
So maybe, actually, Steven, I think you're convincing me. Wait, I'm having a prophecy right now. I am the second son of God. I'm Jesus' younger brother.
I
Happy to reveal it to the public right now in this podcast.
I guess I guess
It's got to
there's
be
all
Christian
kinds.
religion
You
because
can
we're
be
in
all kinds
America.
of icons, I guess. So, but
Yep.
yeah, religious
Yep.
icons seems like a lot to live up to. Like,
I mean, we're gonna find out because I just revealed myself
what?
that I'm Jesus' younger brother.
Hey, I can't argue that. I mean, on faith alone. I mean, I'm just going to use my faith that you believe what you say, or I believe what you
You
say.
could be my Kira.
There you go.
Kira says she's there to help the emissary.
That's right.
Loved that. Loved that. We also got to see Dax in the captain's chair of the Defiant. Loved that too.
Yes.
Made me want Captain Dax. In the novel set after the series, we do have a Captain Dax,
Oh,
but
good. That makes sense.
not during the run of the series. It worked. The wormholes open a crack. What a convenient thing that now they have communication because they've got a crack. It's just open.
Yeah.
And they're not going to change. I assume we're meant to think it's so small that they don't have to add something CGI every time we see space.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it would kind of been cool if they had like a little tiny ball now every time we see the station. So the prophecy does come true. Did that surprise you that the prophecy ended up actually coming to pass?
Yeah, I wrote down the episodes is tied up, and I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way, but it's scientific and religious. Maybe I do mean this in a kind of a bad way, but not really. But it's all ex post facto. It's very much looking back, like, well, and scientifically that makes sense. Actually, both of them make sense. Science is like, oh, actually, I'm going to reverse myself. I think this is a good thing because it's showing like, well, the science we figured out what happened, and the religious side is going to be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what these words meant, is what you said happened.
Yes.
Which, and while we're on the religious versus scientific, people that, and apparently a lot of people in this country who are like, evolution, read Genesis. Genesis pretty much is like, here's how they started here and they did this and they did this. It's like, yeah, it's right there in Genesis. So send all your angry emails to Keith at IABD Presents. Is IABDpresents.com, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Send them to Keith at IABDpresents.com.
If you got a problem with what I said, send it to Keith. But yeah, so I guess it's in good company, I guess. But yeah, so I think I actually like that.
I liked O'Brien saying goodbye to the Cardassian. I thought it was a nice scene.
Yeah.
Good wrap up.
Yep.
And then we have the Vedic apologizing to Sisko.
Yes.
And says the fourth prophecy, because this was the third prophecy, says the fourth prophecy may still come to pass. Yes. And Sisko asks about it, which I like. I'm glad that his curiosity has been awakened. And even if he's not going to let it influence his decisions, I like now that he's engaging with it more than we've seen. And I do think it comes up a little more often in the show going forward. But a trial and forced to choose. And fans have really glommed onto that because technically, while we don't hear that much and things are up into interpretation, I think that one comes true too.
Okay. But it's not pointed out in the episode itself, or?
No.
Interesting.
But it essentially telegraphs the series finale.
Okay.
So I don't know that they knew what the series finale was this early, but if you want to break it down, just that little glimpse of what we got could easily be interpreted as what happens in the series finale. So I'm like, okay, I like that kind of set up over 4 years before we get to it.
That's definitely planting a seed and waiting for it to come to
I
fruition.
gotta think at this point, it couldn't have been. I mean, maybe in retrospect, somebody remembered this and tied it in, or maybe that's just such an iconic thing of fiery trial making a choice that's so generic, you know.
Right.
But season 3 and what they have said in this brief glimpse can be interpreted for the series finale.
Sure.
Well, and the end of Sisko's arc as the emissary.
And again, it could be that ex post facto rationalizing. Well, this is what they were.
I like that a lot better though than them saying, well, they said this was the third theory, this was the third season. I like that a lot better than this. Like next episode, we find out the first 2 prophecies happened in the first 2 seasons, and then we lay out the next 4 prophecies, and we have to check them off as we go through. I'd rather just only know about these 2 prophecies and be done with it.
Yeah. You mentioned it, but the Galora O'Brien goodbye was, as we also kind of already alluded to, bittersweet to me because it was very sweet, but also like, and I wish, and again, we know, as you've already mentioned, it's not going to be examined, but yeah, wouldn't it be great if O'Brien was like, man, I think I might have missed out on something there.
Nope. Instead, we got to go through them having a second kid and all that crap.
Yeah. Instead, it's and you know, guess what? That's true to life. A lot of lives too. So
true.
But regardless, we can still root for a Galora O'Brien. And I think if I had my alternate episode later, I'd have gone that route as well. But I did not. I started not because Galora starts off as like this jerk, and then her turn is like, okay. I mean, and this goes to my shallowness, which is like, oh man, she's really cute. And again, as people who've listened to the DS9 parts of our podcast know, for whatever reason, you put any woman in Cardassian makeup, I find them very attractive, which isn't much of a reach from women in general, but you know what I'm saying. But anyway.
Same with Klingon. It's just most of the aliens on the series because we think the same thing of Klingons.
I think
Romulan women that don't have the short haircut.
Yeah, you're right.
And Vulcan women that don't have the short haircut.
Yeah,
if you don't have the Spock original series haircut and you're a Vulcan or Romulan woman.
I mean, Joanne Linville, hello. And you're right about Klingons, whether they have a boob window or not. Exactly. Yeah, they're still. That's a really good point. And maybe that's actually maybe that just points to the thing about we like things we like variety. We like things that are different from us. So not necessarily opposites attract, but right. Yeah, somebody who's not same old. I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
This was directed by Les Landau, written by David S. Cohen and Martin A. Weiner. Not the David S. Cohen I was thinking, or is that X Cohen, does Futurama and stuff?
Yeah.
This David S. Cohen only has 2 writing credits, this being the first, and Martin only has 1 writing credit, this being the only. So I don't know who they were or why they got a script in, but in these days, Star Trek was still accepting scripts by mail and freelance scripts.
Wow.
No longer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, if they were doing that today, I would write and submit a script.
Hell yeah.
But when they were doing it then, I always wanted to, but I just was too young. I couldn't do anything like good enough to submit.
Yeah.
Oh well. That would have been cool to be a teenager with a script on Star Trek. It did happen.
Oh yeah. I don't have any other notes. Those are
okay. Yeah. Well, not even a teenager. I was 11 when this episode came out. So even by the time I was like 16, I think they'd shut down the script submissions.
When I was 11, I didn't write any Star Trek. Well, no, I don't think I did. No.
I definitely wrote some Star Trek stories, but I was not prepared to write a whole script and send it. Yeah. And certainly nothing I thought quality-wise. But again, my window was like between the ages of 8 and 12, 8 and 13. Yeah. I just wasn't going to work. It wasn't ever going to happen.
I think I had mentioned before I did do like a...
Let's get to the rankings. Who was your...
My shady? I'm sorry. Which one?
No. What you said you mentioned before you did do what?
Oh, I was just... I think we talked about this before, but around that time, I was in some kind of role-playing thing where I had to write down my moves. I was the captain of a ship, and I had all these people, and they gave me the situation. I would give my commands, and I'd put it in the mail, and then they'd send it back to me. And I can't remember if eventually I stopped hearing back from them or how it worked, but I didn't remember. It wasn't that much money or anything either. It was like a quarter or something to start it, and it was on like teletype or whatever. But anyway, that made me think of that. But anyway,
That's
the
funny.
rankings.
Rankings. Let's get to the rankings. Who is your shady character in Destiny?
I started off with a bunch of different people. I think the obvious one I'm going to go with her is Jadar.
Ajar. Yes.
Jadar,
Me too.
yeah. I mean, she seemed shady from the drop, but still, she was shady.
I mean, when she came in, it seemed like it took the breath out of the room in Quark's bar.
Yes.
Like when she first
Yeah.
sat down the table, the other two seemed a little bit
Yep.
around there. I think I remembered she was Obsidian Order too, so I was like, yeah, we know she's shady.
Yeah.
Where was your annoyance?
I started with Galora, and as I mentioned, I came around her. I don't mean to put off our religious listeners, but Kira, her prophecy stuff. Yeah. It and maybe it's because we don't usually see that side of her. I appreciate her faith, but I thought her way of like shoehorning the prophecy and all that, it felt like the people I was mentioning earlier who were like, oh well, it's obvious the revelations are happening. So, and that's not emphatic Kira, but I ended up landing on Kira. I started
No,
with
this
Vedic
was
as
Steven's
well.
last episode on the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. You chose Garrick last season, and I let you stay. I'm obviously kidding. There would be no podcast without you.
I'm controversial. I'm out there.
You obviously, I chose Yarick, Vedic Yarick.
And that's
I'm
why
not even gonna call him Vedic, just Yarick.
Yeah.
Because
he's
been defrocked.
That's right.
He was being real annoying. Well. He was way too certain of his prophecy, and no room for other people to interpret. Even though he ended up being right, I still think the Vedic Assembly was right to defrock him and kick him out.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other shenanigans he's been up to for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Who you having a drink with?
Galora. Even before I knew it was Tracy Scott, I mean, she definitely was, like I said, she was the cutest of the Cardassians, but I loved all her interactions with O'Brien and the whole. I meant to whatever does she say you're very strong? Is that what she says? You have very steady hands. Something. You have very steady hands. Is what she tells him. And then her very next line is nice. I assure you I'm quite fertile. I like her. She's very straightforward at that point, but I enjoyed her very much. So yeah, so Galora. And also, especially after O'Brien rejected her. But she makes me sound like Mac on It's Always Sunny. But you guys can go check that out and figure out what I mean by that. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, who are you having a drink with?
I'm having a drink with Yulani. I really liked her attitude. I liked her whole approach.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Wendy Roby is a little old for me because she was born 30 years before I was. However, when she did this episode, she's about the age I am now, and so feels age appropriate. And also, just I dug her look. I dug her personality. Mm-hmm. I liked the science stuff of let's just not let cultural stuff interfere. I'm here for the pure science. I'll work with you, and I want to make peace with you. Why can't we all just get along and bond over the correct things?
Well, and to that point, at some point, I wrote down for Shady. I wrote down all the Cardassians ? Because I was like, all right, is there another shoe that's going to drop here with Jadar and all that? But turned out, no, those two were legit. Galora and
and I'm glad of that.
Yeah, that was great.
And I really wish those two returned at some point.
Yes, but I know Galora doesn't.
No, neither of them do. This was their only Trek credit, each of them. It's such a shame. Those are two characters I would have liked to have seen again.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's plenty of possibility to have seen them. Mm-hmm. I know once the war gets started, a lot of those avenues with Cardassia shut down, but still think we could have done something with them. I feel like there's similar characters that shows up down the road. They could have just reused them, but well, whatever. Ranking the episode.
Right.
Let's pit it against Defiant. Better or worse than Defiant? That was the Tom Riker episode.
Yeah. Ooh, that's my initial reaction was below, but
I don't think so. I think I want to go above.
Yeah, I do too. I think I do too. Yeah.
Above that is Life Support. 2 episodes ago when Bariah was dying.
Yep. I think I go above that. I think.
I'm good with that. But Steven, that puts this as number 1 for the season so far.
Oh, wow.
And you were like it, but it's not as strong as.
That surprises me. But
do you think this season's taking a dive from season 2 quality?
Or maybe I just really like Galora. I don't know. I don't know. I think this is a good episode, but I mean, I feel like we've had.
So I will say, yeah, I think season 3's been good, but season 2 had 3 really fantastic episodes: Blood Oath, The Wire, and the Jimmy-Jerome, and I don't think this season has hit that height yet.
I think
consistently, quality-wise, I think most of the quality of this season is around like 4 through 8 of the rankings of last season, which makes the season seem high quality overall.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, I think we've had good episodes. We haven't had the great episodes. Yeah, not yet.
But I think we haven't had any bad episodes. That's the other side of it, right? Like, season 2 still had one that was bad. Really only one that was bad. But I do think the average quality this season is higher than season 2. We just haven't hit those really good season 2 episode marks yet. Yeah. And we still have a few more episodes in season 3, so we can still get there. Trying to think what's coming. I don't remember what all is in store for the season 3, but we've got at least 10 more episodes left. Anyway, next week, back to the Delta Quadrant. Voyager becomes trapped in a strange nebula when the crew searches for a new power source for the ship. There's coffee in that nebula. Until then, live long.
And with those very steady hands of yours, and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?